you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. He's a successful entrepreneur, published author, top listing agent, a real estate and finance expert that goes to bat for you every day as a consumer advocate. Your host and the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes.
This is the Consumer Quarterback Show with Brandon Rhymes. Brandon is out today. My name is James DeJerome. I'm the producer of the Consumer Quarterback Show with Brandon Rhymes. If you're not familiar with how we do things here at the Consumer Quarterback Show, we bring together business owners from all over the Bay Area, and we provide some information, some knowledge to you, the consumer, because we want your dollar to go farther in the marketplace. So we've assembled a group of business partners in addition to sponsorship on the show. And one of the sponsors I want to mention right off the top of the show is Jade's Premium Quality Cleaning. They do such a great job. This is a family-owned business. This is a minority-owned business. Jade and her kids come out to your house. They clean the entire house. They do such a great job that Brandon made them the official cleaning partner for his real estate division. So anytime there's a real estate property that needs cleaning, he gets in touch with Jade's Premium Quality Cleaning. She comes out and does a great job. As I said, family-owned, minority-owned. Support our local economy like we always talk about here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Jade's Premium Quality Cleaning is the cleaning company for you. In addition to that, of course, Brandon is a member of the Platinum MVP team. He owns Platinum MVP team and Keller Williams Realty. He's got some real estate properties for you, even in this time of real estate scarcity. Johnny's going to throw a few up on the screen for me. 520 George Street South in Tarpon Springs. This is a 4-3, second floor, private master suite. It's got a mother-in-law suite. It's a wood-burning fireplace. Man, it looks really renovated. Kitchen's really sharp. Vaulted ceilings, new cabinets. Great-looking spot at 520 George Street South in Tarpon Springs. It's a 4-3. Get in touch with Brandon. He's got another one for you, 13204 Fawn Lily Drive. This one's in Riverview. 4,500 square feet, 6-bedroom, 5-bath, 3-car garage, covered and screened lanai right on the water. Man, that's a beautiful home. Inside, the kitchen really looks like it's been redone. Granite countertops, really sharp. 13204 Fawn Lily Drive in Riverview. Again, get in touch with the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty, and Brandon will hook you up, even in this time of real estate scarcity. Okay, if you're a fan of the show, then you know all the different outlets we are on. We're streaming live to multiple platforms, as you know. In addition to, smart TV owners can find us anywhere on Roku, Fire TV, Apple, Amazon. They just search Binge Networks for the Consumer Quarterback Show, and that'll take you to us. So we've got our sponsorship covered. I want to introduce Millicent Athanason. Of course, we call her Millie. She comes in all the time. Millie, tell us a little bit, just tease a little bit about what you're going to talk to before we go to Brandon.
Well, today I wanted to talk about the Senate confirmation hearings and how it is that a nominee goes through the process and how she or he becomes a Supreme Court justice. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about what kinds of cases the Supreme Court of the United States hears.
Okay, so some information for you about things that you're finding in the news, very topical from Millie today. And of course, Brandon Faust, Mold Zero, has been a partner on the show. He's provided some information for me as a homeowner that I didn't know about, the dangers of mold and some of the things that mold can do that you weren't aware of, how a silent killer it can be, and some of the issues that people face. Now, Brandon's joining us on the phone. Brandon, you're on location. You're working a job right now?
That's correct. I'm over in the Bel Air area working on a job, and, you know, it's pretty interesting going through all these different homes and seeing the different scenarios that, you know, come about because of the weather, the temperament here in Tampa Bay. You know, you have toxic mold that comes from water intrusion issues, but there's other types of mold that can develop really through the humidity levels, which is, you know, something that Tampa Bay and the South has an issue with. So
I think a lot of homeowners hear mold and they just think mold is mold. You've got various types and different products for them and different procedures and symptoms from each one.
Completely. This is actually something I was going over with a buddy of mine who's moving out here from California. You know, he was going over a mold report and kind of wondering why certain numbers, you know, they were high, were not as bad as other molds where their numbers were lower, you know. And, you know, there's a lot to it, and you have to understand what the different molds are, what is considered to be normal fungal ecology, what is considered to be mildly elevated, what's considered to be highly elevated, and where you actually might need to do actual removal of contaminated material, whereas, you know, another type of mold, you could actually go the sanitization route where you don't actually have to tear out any of the material or tear down your home. So, you know, so at Mold Zero, we do both.
Let me just back up a bit, Brandon, because I noticed something you said there, that there's certain molds that are inherent. You said that there's some that are going to be, it's almost impossible to have a mold-free environment. Is that right?
Completely. So the term I used was normal fungal ecology.
Okay.
So every home is going to have some mold. And it's really mold spores, because the testing that we're doing, you're doing air samples, and in some cases you're doing a direct sample, which is like a swab, or you're doing a tape lift. If you see some sort of colonized mold, or maybe you're doing a tape lift on, a ledge that hasn't been dusted to get a bit of a history of the home. So you have various tests that give you a overall indoor air quality profile on that home. So, just because you have some spores doesn't mean that that's like necessarily a huge problem. There are other types of molds that if they come up in the readings, they're called, marker spores or zero tolerance spores, where it doesn't matter. Even if you have one or two, you need to do a deeper dive. You're going to actually have to do remediation, because the only way you have that in the home is if there is some sort of water intrusion issue, or there has been some sort of a leak. And that's where you really got to get your detective hat on and actually find out what caused that type of mold to grow.
So it's not just as simple as seeing some mold and saying, hey, I have mold. You need to find out what you have and how to treat it and where it's coming from, so that you can try to alleviate the cause.
There's a lot to it, for sure. And just because you don't see it doesn't mean that it's not there.
Yeah, that's
so I went into a home, 2 days ago, where, as soon as you walk in, there's a musty smell, and if it's musty, the chances are extremely high that it's mold. You can pretty much bank on it. And she'd had a number of people come out and tell her it was one thing or another, and really the only way we're going to be able to say for certain is by doing those air samples, so I haven't gotten those results back yet, but the lab is going to be the one to tell me whether or not there's mold there. But I can pretty much, say with certainty that based on that smell, it is going to come back elevated, and not just a little bit. But when I looked throughout the house, I couldn't find anything. But I've had that scenario multiple times where I can't find anything, but there's a musty smell, and it happens that it's in the HVAC, it's in the ducts, and maybe it's in the wheel blower inside of the actual air handler, and it's actually in the middle part where that cold air is hitting the warm air, and that's where you end up getting that microbial growth. So if you have that, then guess where it's also going? It's going all throughout your home if it's in your AC system.
So when you do an air sample, Brandon, how do you do that?
We're basically going to set up a suction pump, if you will, that pulls air through a cassette, and there's a little piece of paper in this cassette, and it's basically pulling anything that's right there in that 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot space. We run it for about 5 minutes. We send it off to a lab, and they basically put it under a microscope, and they say, look, in this area you have 500 Aspergillus penicillium, or you have 3 Stachybotrys, which is the black mold. So let's say it was 200 on the penasp, right, Aspergillus penicillium, and it was 3 on the Stachy. Well, the Stachybotrys, the black mold, is going to be more concerning to me than the 200 on the Aspergillus penicillium, because that's a more common thing, and you have to get into those higher numbers for it to really be something that's going to cause physical problems.
So you can see Brandon has done quite a bit of education on mold. It's not something that you just say, hey, there's mold and we'll treat it. You've got to know the varieties, the types, how to treat, how to brace the homeowner for what's coming. And again, he said it's something you cannot even see at times. It's just in the home, in the air. So if you don't have a professional, there's almost no way you're going to figure this thing out by yourself.
In a lot of cases, if you're seeing it, you're actually way past the point you want to be. Right, because you're talking about a mold spore is microscopic. You can fit 10 mold spores on the tip of a hair. So if you're seeing it with the naked eye, you're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of spores that have gotten together, and they're sitting there having a party. And as soon as you attack it or try to remove it, or agitate it, that mold, that colonized mold is going to go into defense mode. It's going to shoot out a biotoxin. It's going to shoot out more spores. It's going to go into rapid replication mode. So that's why we always tell people, look, if you walk into a scenario where there's mold on a number of different items, don't go and spray it, because you're going to make it worse. You're going to aerosolize it. So you need to make sure that it's handled by somebody who is a professional, that's going to clean the air and also remove the contaminated material. He'll be able to tell you this can be salvaged, or no, this cannot be salvaged, because it really does depend on the type of material, whether or not, you can salvage it or not, Right. So,
and it doesn't necessarily happen to old homes. It can be new homes. It's more about the environment than the age of the home.
100%. There's a guy that I actually went and helped on Bel Air Beach. He was very new construction, and he had paid quite a bit for this townhouse, right? And he had a particular beetle that started showing up in his home. And he was like, why am I getting this particular little bug? And he actually took it to a bug specialist that put it under a microscope, and he said, look, this particular beetle only feeds off of mold. That's the only thing it lives off of. So he said, are you kidding me? So then he opened up his ceiling, and sure enough, the space between the ceiling and the subfloor of the other unit was covered in Aspergillus penicillium. Okay? So basically that new build, the builder used wet material, right, and didn't dry it out. So then closed it up, and of course it led to a huge bloom of mold in that sort of that space. That it's like a 1.5 foot space where the ducts were basically run.
You haven't warned us a little bit about construction projects where during the procedure it's open. All the walls are open, the ceiling's off, and during the certain inclement weather, we get a lot of rain down here. You can't just close that right up or you're going to lead to a big issue.
100%. You need to make sure it's dry, you know, and the dry standard in our industry, is completely different than what most people would say. They go, oh, there's no water. They look, they touch it with their hand, they go, oh, it's dry. But when you use these sensitive instruments, they'll tell you, look, no, it's actually 30% wet. And if that's the case, you know, we cannot walk away from a job like that because it's wet enough that mold will start growing on it. You know, so we know the exact numbers, you know, where the material would have to be removed or whether or not you could use a dehumidifier to dry it out. You know, so there's all this stuff that you basically have to know when you're handling, you know, homes where there's water damage or there's mold situations. So there's a lot to it.
We all are familiar with a leaky roof, water intrusion, like Brandon is telling you. You know, those are the kind of things we can get our head around. The idea that it's invisible and it's in the home before we bought it, or it's something that we would never see with our naked eye, makes it a lot trickier. And that's why Mold Zero is important, and that's why we have Brandon on the show. We're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we're going to visit a little bit more with Brandon about some of the things you can do to help the situation, some of the things you need to look for. And we want to make sure that we have a positive part of your day, and we're going to do that with an off-duty firefighter that saved a girl from a burning house. Brandon always wants me to be positive with you, and I want to make sure that that's something I keep going on the show, that our feel-good story. And again, of course, all our partners are going out of their way to bring some information to you to make you a better consumer. That's the spirit of the show, and that's the value in the show. So come on back and check us out. Consumer Quarterback Show rolls on.
Hey, this is Grant Cardone, and you're listening to Consumer Quarterback Show, hosted by my friend Brandon Rhymes. Do not touch that dial. I'll come right through the radio and grab your throat.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-670-7372. Online at consumerqb.com.
My friends, when choosing a listing agent to sell your home, their track record is critically important. Dennis Prager here for Brandon and Lindsay Rhymes, owners of Platinum MVP Team at Keller Williams Real Estate. They're consistently rated by the MLS in the top 1% of all Tampa Bay realtors, and that's a big deal. Brandon and Lindsay are always among the top realtors in the state. Call them today at 813-750-0550.
Find them at platinummvpteam.kw.com.
Selling commercial or residential property? Don't leave money on the table. List with the Platinum MVP Team at Keller Williams Realty. I'm Brandon Rhymes. Reach me at 813-670-7372 or platinummvpteam.com.
My name is James DeJerome, and I produce the Consumer Quarterback Show for Brandon Rhymes. The Consumer Quarterback Show is a team, a group of like-minded professionals who partner together to provide our audience sound advice, knowledge, and information to make them wiser consumers. We work with all types of business owners and aggressively promote our local economy. We're currently conducting interviews for our expert contributors. If you own a business or know someone who would benefit from the exposure our show provides, please contact us at 813-750-0550 or online at consumerqb.com.
You're listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, online at consumerqb.com. Brandon is Tampa Bay's #1 consumer advocate for real estate and financial advice. Call Brandon today at 813-670-7372.
Give Brandon a call, and he will hook you up. Again, as owner of the Platinum MVP Team, Keller Williams, he's got lots of properties out there for you. Of course, the Consumer Quarterback Show is his brainchild. We get together every day and provide you with some information. We want your dollar to go farther in the marketplace. We've got like-minded business professionals who have that same entrepreneurial spirit that want to come in and provide you some information and take time out of their day to help you make better purchasing decisions. And, of course, our sponsorship is critical to the show. Golf Cart Depot's come on board as a sponsor, and they've done such a good job that Brandon wants to make sure I hit Golf Cart Depot real hard. They've provided him with a golf cart, and he does, he started out doing business with it, driving around and knocking on doors and talking to people about real estate. And all of a sudden his kids found out how fun the golf cart is. So now the kids and the dogs are piled in the golf cart and they ride around all day. So the golf cart never gets a break. So if you have anything out, any kids, any pets, any reason to have one, utility, commercial, residential, all different styles, all different colors, Discovery Golf Carts out of Tampa, Clearwater, discoverygolfcarts.com. They've got everything, man. Check them out, Golf Cart Depot. All right, in addition, of course, Brandon is a realtor, and Platinum MVP team has properties for you. We've got one up here. Johnny's going to throw one up on the screen for me. 12500 Hamlin Road in Spring Hill. This is 41 acres. Every time I see this property, I want to get on a horse and ride around a little bit. You could have your own ranch up there. Access from multiple roads. It's near Highway 41, County Road 52 in Pasco. Again, it's 41 acres, zoned agriculture. It's well and septic. It's huge. It's got an 1,800 square foot mobile home on the property as well. Really sharp looking. 12500 Hamlin Road, Spring Hill, 41 acres of property. Man, that is beautiful. Platinum MVP team, Keller Williams Realty. Get in touch with them if you want to see any of the properties that we've got. Okay, we were visiting with Brandon Faust, Mold Zero, before the break, and Brandon was telling us all about the different kinds of mold out there and why it's not just something that you can handle yourself. And it's a silent killer. It's something you might not see. Brandon, you've had issues with people that have experienced medical emergency or kind of an illness from it, and then folks who've had to have major reconstruction of their homes. Talk a little bit about what you've seen in the field.
Yeah, I've not only had clients that have had it, I've had it myself,
Okay.
So when, I went through my own physical issues that were mold-related, it really gave me a deeper understanding and greater empathy with the people that I've been helping. And also, you could also imagine that, when somebody doesn't want to handle it the right way, you feel more responsible because you know what can happen if it's not addressed correctly. So one of the things that I'm seeing right now with the, people coming back down from up north, the snowbirds, they walk into their homes after being gone for 4 months, during a very, humid time period. And they walk into green stuff all over their couches, their furniture, green and white fuzz, if you will. Mm-hmm. And some people think that you can just call in a cleaning company to address it, and they may get rid of the actual colonized visible growth, but what they're doing in actual fact is aerosolizing those mold spores. It's a lot like taking a baseball bat to a beehive. Mm-hmm. So if you have somebody who is allergic to it or has certain sensitivities, it could really cause some serious issues for them. In addition to the immediate impact that it can have, those particular mold spores or the biotoxin that mold releases has been linked to some pretty dangerous things. So if you look into what's called Great Plains Laboratory, it's a company that does what is called mycotoxin testing. Mm-hmm. Myco means fungus, and so fungus toxin testing. They actually do, tests that tell you what type of toxins you have in your system. And the Aspergillus species of mold, it actually has been connected to dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cancer, etc. So it's got some serious negative health impacts that you don't want to necessarily ignore or have some cleaning person go in there and wipe it down. Not that I have a problem with cleaning people, because in truth, mold remediators, really, we are cleaning people first and foremost.
Right.
But you need to make sure you understand, you respect the mold and you deal with it correctly, and then you do testing afterwards to make sure that it was all gotten rid of.
Yeah, because of the microscopic nature of the invisibility, you talk about just wiping it with a cloth and accidentally spreading it through the air all over the place by disturbing it. Most people haven't thought that far. They can see with their eyes and they think they've taken care of the problem.
That's correct. And you go take it a step further and you go, okay, well, it's not just the microscopic spore, it's also the gas that the mold releases as a defense mechanism as well. And that is what's called the mycotoxin. And again, myco meaning fungus, so the toxin that the fungus releases, right? So it's pretty.
Yeah, it's crazy to think it's a living being. You don't think of it as an animal or a living thing that can fight back or try to avoid treatment. It's a crazy thing to think about.
Right.
Now,
exactly.
You've opened up some houses where no exterior symptoms, nothing looking unusual, only to find it's hidden back there. Then there's the other scenario where there's a bunch out front, and you just as soon as you walk in, you see it. Talk about the differences in how you treat those situations.
Sure. So, in truth, it's one of those things that when you have it on all surfaces, some people might say, hey, look, you need to kind of tear out your entire home. I'm not of that school of thought. We try to do as little demolition as possible. So if it's a surface mold and it hasn't impacted the actual material, right, you can do a HEPA-vac, which stands for high efficiency particulate arrestor. It's a very detailed vacuuming, damp wipe, and a very thorough fogging. And I think that's one of the advantages that we have at Mold Zero is we do have a proprietary system where we fill the entire home with a dry fog. It actually lingers for about 30 to 40 minutes. And the science of it is that you have hydrogen peroxide and a commercial-grade vinegar. So those airborne spores that we're wiping down, getting rid of, that might be going airborne, they actually are getting hit by the product that lingers long enough to actually eat through the membrane of the mold spore. So the actual commercial-grade vinegar, it's got an acidic aspect to it that eats through the membrane, and then the hydrogen peroxide, it oxidizes it. So in effect, it denatures the actual mold spore, so it can no longer grow again, and it loses its allergenic potential. So on top of that, it's combating the toxic gas that it releases as well.
So a huge potential savings for somebody who is looking at maybe having to rip a wall out.
Correct. Where that might be the thing that they would normally get told to do, we could say, hey, look, we're going to fog the whole place. We're going to make sure that every nook and cranny gets addressed. We're going to do we are going to do the HEPA vacuuming. We are going to do the damp wipe. We are going to do the air scrubbing. We're not going to cut corners, but we're not necessarily going to cut out walls that don't need to be cut out either. Right now, if it's wet mold and it is contaminated, then yes, that's where we say you definitely need to remove the contaminated material. No question about it. If it comes from a leak or some sort of water intrusion like that and it's impacted the material.
So Florida homeowners have to be aware. You have to get in touch with a professional, Brandon Faust, Mold Zero. Make sure that you're aware of what's in your home, and then you need a strategy for combating it. What can you tell homeowners about ways to avoid it? I know we talked about the snowbirds and what they do that adds to the problem. What can you do as a homeowner to mitigate?
100%. I would say don't save money on your AC. You think you're going to save a few $100s on keeping your AC at like 82 degrees. Well, look, if your humidity goes over 60% for a long period of time, the chances are extremely high you're going to wind up with, green and white garden when you get home.
Right.
And that garden is toxic. So, and that proposition is going to cost a lot more
than your air conditioning
than what
bill.
you would have saved.
Yeah.
So have a dehumidifier, that basically has an automatic pump that drains while you're gone. And make sure that it doesn't have any chance of falling out. Have a neighbor go and check on your place just to make sure that you catch it before it's a real horrible situation,
Absolutely.
So dehumidifier, keep your AC around 79. More than anything, there's a lot of these smart devices now where you can actually tell what your humidity is from, 1,000 miles away, across the globe, right?
Take advantage of technology.
100%. Take advantage of the technology. Make sure your humidity levels stay under 60%. That's really what I would say. Make sure
Absolutely.
You take advantage of all the technology that's out there.
Hey, Brandon, what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you as we come into the break?
Yeah, 727-900-7202. That's the office phone number for Mold Zero. We have great staff there that will answer your calls, answer your questions. We do free estimates, free walkthroughs for homeowners. We take a look at the situation and give you the best direction we possibly can.
Thanks so much, Brandon. Brandon Faust, Mold Zero. Come on back. We're going to talk to Millie Athanason. She's got some great stuff on the Supreme Court. Consumer Quarterback Show.
This is Work Done, and you're listening to the Real Estate Quarterback Show hosted by my man, Brandon Rhymes.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-670-7372. Online at consumerqb.com.
Alrighty, everybody, stand by, please.
Five, four, three, two, one.
You're listening to the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. Online at consumerqb.com.
ConsumerQB.com is where you can find all the partners on the Consumer Quarterback Show, in addition to our sponsors and some of the information that Brandon has about Platinum MVP Team, his real estate business. Of course, we want all of you to check us out. Whether you're listening on the radio, we want you to check us out online and watch us on our YouTube channel, or go to a smart TV and search Binge Networks. Any Roku, Fire TV, or Apple TV can find the Consumer Quarterback Show by searching Binge Networks. Of course, we're on Sunday morning on 102.5 FM. We're all over the place. We stream now live, of course, multiple platforms, and we want to do that because we feel this show has value for you as a consumer. You know, when you're out there making your purchasing decisions, you're getting a lot of different advice from different vendors. We want you to go in there armed with some knowledge, with some information that takes care of some of the misunderstandings that can occur in the commerce that takes place out there. So to that end, we've assembled a bunch of partners, and we've got some great ones. We talked to Brandon Faust from Mold Zero. He shared a bunch of stories with us because he's concerned about your health. He wants to do some things for your home and make sure you're safe and your family's safe. And of course, Millie's coming in here right now, and she always does a great job with information for us. But don't forget about the sponsors behind the scenes. Replenish IV Solutions has been a sponsor for the Consumer Quarterback Show for many years. Replenish IV Solutions has a very unique business model. They will come directly to you with IV solutions to improve your immunity, to give you a renewed sense of energy and youth. I mean, this idea of IV drips and vitamin drips, it's taken over. So, I mean, this is science, and the way that you can use science to improve your health. So Replenish IV Solutions, again, they will come to you if you can't make it to one of their locations. They'll come directly to you and bring the science right to you. So Replenish IV Solutions, we encourage you to check them out. And, of course, our properties are constantly coming up on the show because Brandon owns the Platinum MVP Team. He's a Keller Williams agent. And we've got a few, even in this time of real estate scarcity, we've got a few. 4209 Preserve Place is in Palm Harbor. This is 2,295 square feet. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo with a 2-car garage, vaulted ceilings, and then more of those beautiful white cabinets that Chris Robinson from About Face says is the new look for cabinets. So this house is updated. It's right on the water. 4209 Preserve Place in Palm Harbor. Man, that is a sharp-looking property. I think we got one more. What else you got for me, Johnny? 422 Wildwood Way. This is in Bel Air. This is a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath, 2 garages. It's built in 2004. It's newly renovated, close to the beaches, and we all want to be close to the beaches. Again, those beautiful white cabinets that are the new style that everyone wants, granite countertops, really sharp-looking place over there. Of course, close to the beach is where I want to be. So 422 Wildwood Way in Bel Air. Give Brandon a call. The Platinum MVP Team at Keller Williams Realty has always got real estate for you, even in this time of real estate scarcity. All right, back to the show. Millie is here. Millie comes in all the time and brings us great information and has some stuff for us today about what you've been hearing in the news regarding the Supreme Court.
Yes, as we know right now, the Senate confirmation hearings are going on with regard to Amy Coney Barrett, who is President Trump's nominee for the United States Supreme Court. She's currently a sitting judge on the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals.
If I could back up just and ask some general questions, because this is not an area I'm very strong in. We have a finite number of justices, 9, is that correct?
That is correct. There's 9. It didn't start out that way. They actually started out with 6, grew to 10, and then came back to 9.
And this is a lifetime position once you're given this position.
That is absolutely correct. A Supreme Court justice is not removed unless they're removed or they retire or they die. They're going to be on the court for their lifetime.
Do you find that most people who become Supreme Court justices have been attorneys in a specific jurisdiction or area or for a certain amount of time? Is there a common theme maybe with who gets nominated?
I will say this, in looking this up, most of the justices have either gone to Harvard or Yale Law School.
Okay.
What's interesting about this proposed nominee is that she actually went to law school at Notre Dame. So that's something kind of unique. A lot of them were, law professors. Like, for example, Justice Ginsburg was a law professor, as was her husband. Amy Coney Barrett is a law professor as well at the University of Notre Dame Law School. So they were either there or they clerked for, let's say, another Supreme Court justice. So, like, for example, our Chief Justice Roberts, he was a clerk, I believe, for Judge Rehnquist when he was on the bench before he retired. And I think Amy Coney Barrett, of course, was a clerk for Antonin Scalia.
Okay. Just a little background there, because I was a little unsure that I had the feeling about the lifetime appointment and how these folks get to this particular position.
Yes, I know, it's interesting. Now, what happens is when there becomes a vacancy on the Supreme Court, either because, in this case, a justice died, or if a justice retires, I mean, they are allowed to retire if they want to, or something else happens, it's typical, and what's supposed to happen is the president nominates somebody for that position. Now, it should be noted in this case, Judge Amy Coney Barrett is a sitting judge on the Circuit Court of Appeals, and that's because when that vacancy became open back in 2017, Trump appointed her, and she went through the same Senate confirmation process, basically, that she's going through now.
Okay.
Because that's true with all federal judges. Okay. So what happens is the president makes a nomination to the Supreme Court. Then what happens is the FBI actually runs a complete background check on the individual. The nominee then has to fill out a questionnaire that talks about her past judicial service or what she's done in the legal profession that would qualify her to make decisions interpreting federal law. So, let's say you were a clerk for another Supreme Court justice, or you taught school and taught the issue of constitutional law. You've written articles, law review articles, books on certain topics important in constitutional law. So they fill out that questionnaire. Then it goes before a Senate Judiciary Committee. The Senate Judiciary Committee has about 22 members right now, both Democratic and Republican. For example, Senator Harris, Kamala Harris, the VP candidate, is a sitting member of the...
Are those folks appointed, or how is that committee established?
It's established through the Senate.
Okay.
So they're sitting on the committee. Now, what does the committee do? The committee, basically what they do is they take in all the information and do their own research, and then they make recommendations to the entire Senate floor for the confirmation, official confirmation. So what will happen? I've been watching these hearings on C-SPAN. Yes, I must be really bored. I'm watching C-SPAN, right? But you can actually listen to the hearings. I actually watched it a little bit this morning. Yesterday, the hearings were comprised of mostly the senators on the committee kind of posturing maybe for their constituents and talking about their beliefs and what they think should happen, etc. Today was more of the questioning process, which is somewhat difficult because a judicial candidate really can't talk about what she or he perceives that they're going to rule, because if they did that,
it would show a bias.
Exactly, a kind of a disdain for the very process that they're seeking to be a part of.
Right.
So usually they're going to just answer the question by saying, I'm not allowed to forecast what my opinion may be on a particular subject. The two questions that are coming up with basically every senator on the committee, both Republican and Democratic, is the Affordable Health Care Act, and of course women's reproductive rights, the threat to overturn Roe versus Wade. So those are the big hot topics. There were some other topics questioned about, such as the ability to purchase guns and such, but the two hot topics, health care and women's reproductive rights.
But in general, her response would be, hey, I can't tell you what I'm going to say.
That is correct. Again, she can't forecast or predict what's going to happen. All she can say is, well, I'm going to look at the facts that are before the court, and I'm going to apply the law that's in existence. I'm going to look at legal precedents and make a decision. So, what you can look at is by looking at prior events that perhaps this candidate attended, prior speeches that she's made, prior articles that she's made. So she was confronted because she wrote that she criticized Chief Justice Roberts' decision when it came to issues involving the Affordable Care Act previously, about that she's, personally anti-abortion. But again, your personal opinions are not to be considered when you're making a decision. In fact, a justice may not actually like what they're writing, but they have to go along with the law. So it's about being a jurist and serving the people. It's not a political forum. And that's why they're appointed for life, because they don't want it to be about politics, and they don't want the judges to feel like their job is going to be threatened by having to go through an election, because they would fear that then politics would come more into it.
Yeah. Funny you mentioned this. I was talking with a legal friend of mine, and we discussed a little bit about attorneys and taking an unpopular stand. And we brought up John Adams, and he said that John Adams, back in the time of the Revolutionary War, defended the British right because it was simply the right to be represented. And he said, absolutely, taxation without representation is incorrect. It's incorrect for American citizens, incorrect for a British subject in America. And it was a very unpopular position to take, but it was based on his principle, and it was going to apply broadly to American citizen or British. So that idea that you have a principle and you've proven over time that's what the value, that's who you are, that's the kind of thing you're trying to determine what you might do in the future.
Well, yes, and so they're looking at that, of course, and they're questioning her, and her answers are pretty much the same, that, again, my personal opinion on a topic is not what's relevant here. It's what is the precedent and how the law is going to apply to those facts. So the judicial branch interprets the law. Congress writes the laws. So again, that's why you have the three branches of government, and they're all supposed to work in uniformity. So that's an important process. So then after the Senate confirms somebody by a vote, and as I said, after the committee finishes, they make the recommendations and set forth their positions to the general floor, and then a vote is taken on.
Is it a simple majority on that?
Yes, it's a majority on that. So as long as the justice is confirmed, then she is confirmed to the Supreme Court.
Just may back up just a touch. What is the typical duration of this examination? How long does this take, this process of investigating the person's background or this confirmation hearing?
Usually you're looking at about 2 to 3 weeks. A lot of people were questioning, well, why is this happening so quickly? Is it because President Trump wants to get in a justice before the election?
Right.
Well, with all due respect, there aren't going to be any Supreme Court decisions rendered, even if this justice is confirmed.
Right.
There's not going to be any opinions on topics prior to the election. So
because they're in hiatus.
Well, no, actually the Supreme Court is scheduled to hear arguments on cases.
They're already booked.
Yes, actually the regular session of the United States Supreme Court usually is at about mid to late October through around approximately June.
Okay.
So they're in session, and there are legal arguments scheduled to be heard. For example, on the Affordable Health Care Act, there is legislation that's questioned, obviously, and the Supreme Court before it has agreed to hear a case. It's Texas versus California. And because, as you know, in Trump's, when he did the refurbished, if you will, taxes back in 2018, there was a penalty that was removed. If you didn't purchase Obamacare or a health care plan under the Affordable Care Act,
you had a penalty, fine.
Yeah, you were penalized on your taxes. Well, that's now no more. So there's a question, okay, if we did away with that part of it, is the remainder of the Affordable Health Care Act constitutional, or does it all need to be taken down? So that argument, the oral arguments on that case are set to begin, I believe, on November 10th, which is just a week after the general election.
Okay.
However, just because oral arguments are commencing then, an opinion isn't likely to be rendered until sometime like perhaps by May or June of 2021.
Okay.
So it's not an overnight process.
In researching this, did you find any Supreme Court candidates that had a unique path that took a super long time or a super short time, or they were automatically in, or they were excessively young in their 30s, where someone might have been 70 years old? There's a range like that?
There's an age range on the Supreme Court right now. You've got Justice Roberts. He's on the conservative side. He is 65. Clarence Thomas, who's also a conservative, appointed by George Bush. He's 72. Stephen Breyer, appointed by Bill Clinton, is 82. Yeah. So that's something to watch there.
I would just think the one thing about having the older folks is that you have a larger duration of results to look at. In other words, when you're in that evaluation process, this guy's been sitting on the bench for 50 years. You've got a lot of decisions that you can look at.
Absolutely. And most of them, I think the youngest justice currently on the court is Neil Gorsuch, who was appointed by Trump. I believe he's 53. Okay. But everybody is older than that. So, yes, the proposed nominee is younger than that. She is the first nominee to have school-age children. She's got 7 children, and actually it was amazing to me because they were all sitting there during these confirmation hearings, and I'm thinking, man, these kids gotta be bored, But they sat there, didn't flinch. They all have their masks on. They're sitting there. I mean, they were very well behaved. So she must be doing something right at home, So.
All right, we're going to take a little break. We're going to come back and talk more with Millie about the Supreme Court, all the things I didn't understand about how they get to this point and how we bring another justice on board and what that means to us as citizens of the United States. So some great information from Millie. Plus, we got a feel-good story. Don't go anywhere, and don't forget to check us out online, consumerquarterback.com.
Hey, I'm Ken Shamrock, and you're here with Consumer Quarterback Show. And I say, Brandon Rhymes, knock out your competition.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-670-7372. Online at consumerqb.com.
This is Diane Vance with Fairway Independent Mortgage, a member of the Consumer Quarterback Show. Please give me a call for any of your mortgage needs. We do all sorts of loans. If you would like information on a mortgage, you can text me or call me at 727-647-8199. I will take care of all your mortgage needs. Go to my website at dianevance.com.
Ian Beckles here with my man Brandon Rhymes, a.k.a. the real estate quarterback. Brandon, what's happening with the market?
Thanks, Ian. We are in a low inventory market, so any of our listeners are homeowners and would like a free comparable market analysis or a 2.5% listing, we will honor this for the first 3 listeners who call or text in 813-773-1253. Free CMA and a 2.5% real estate listing at 813-773-1253. Check out consumerqb.com. Selling commercial or residential property? Don't leave money on the table. List with the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. I'm Brandon Rhymes. Reach me at 813-670-7372 or platinummvpteam.com.
You're listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, online at consumerqb.com. Brandon is Tampa Bay's #1 consumer advocate for real estate and financial advice. Call Brandon today at 813-670-7372.
That's right. You can give Brandon a call anytime. He's got all the information that you hear on the show. The Consumer Quarterback Show is his baby. He's brought it together to make sure that consumers out there listening have a chance to be making smarter purchasing decisions. So information that we get from our partners, the way our sponsors contribute to the program, everything that he set up here is for you. You know, the value as a consumer for you is from the show, and that's the way Brandon wants it to be, in addition to creating a positive environment with a feel-good story. So we're going to start out, I mentioned the sponsorship, and I want to bring you together with Brothers Easy Moving, because Brothers Easy Moving is the official moving partner of the Consumer Quarterback Show, and they got to be that way by working directly with Brandon. So Brandon moved into his new home and hired Brothers Easy Moving, and of course these guys had no idea how much stuff he had. So it gets to be 8 o'clock at night, it's dark out, and they're still out there moving furniture, and I thought these guys are dedicated, and since that time they've become the official partner of the show. And so Brandon, any real estate deals he's involved in where there needs to be a move, whether it's local or long distance, Brothers Easy Moving is the people we call, and you should too. They are a great sponsor for the show, and I encourage you to seek any moving information or business you need. Call Brothers Easy Moving. All right, and of course we have properties all the time, even in this time of real estate scarcity. Brandon and the Platinum MVP team have some properties for you. Johnny's going to throw one up, 6417 Yvette Drive in Hudson. This is a 2-2 right on a deep saltwater canal with Gulf access. Got a wooden deck up top. Man, that's a good-looking house. Look at that. Vaulted ceilings, nice fans right on the water. And 6417 Yvette Drive in Hudson. That is a sharp-looking property. And get in touch with Brandon and the Platinum MVP team if you want to take a second look or hear anything about some of these great properties. 6417 Yvette Drive in Hudson. Give them a call. That is a good-looking place. We were visiting a little bit with Millie, and we're going to continue with our Supreme Court discussion. Right after I tell you a little something positive, Brandon always wants to make sure the feel-good story is a big part of the show. And today we got a good one about an off-duty volunteer firefighter who rescued a girl from a burning home. So Mr. Elijah Hale says he's grateful to be in the right place at the right time. He's an off-duty volunteer firefighter. Drove by a house on Bender Road in Pennsylvania. He knew something wasn't right. He found out a little girl was trapped in the house. The smoke had filled the entire home. With no backup or gear, Elijah, who's been a volunteer firefighter since he was 14 years old, found a ladder to rescue the girl trapped on the second floor. He said, it's a blur. It was probably 30 seconds from the time I pulled up to the time I got the ladder. 30 seconds later, we were out of the house. It just seemed like a split second. Elijah left the scene as soon as EMS arrived, but hours later called back to the scene to be recognized for his courage that saved a life. Our company is proud of his quick thinking and willingness to take action without the benefit of PPE or other fire personnel on the scene. His quick action undoubtedly saved a life. A Facebook post said, man, big man up above, you just put me in the right place at the right time. I'm just glad I could do what I did. So there's an example of a guy who didn't wait. He saw an opportunity and jumped in there and did the right thing. And that's what the feel-good story is all about. We want you to realize there's a lot of folks out there looking out for people and want to do the right thing. And I think that positivity will come out as long as you look for it. It's out there. Okay, Millie, tell me more about the Supreme Court. We were visiting a little bit before the break, and I was learning a little bit about the justices and how we pick them.
Yes. So after the confirmation is done, the nominee can also have family members, friends, colleagues, and such come before the committee and render a recommendation.
Like a character witness.
Absolutely. So like yesterday, for example, the current dean of the law school from Notre Dame came in. And what was interesting about listening to her, I believe her name is Patricia O'Hara, what was interesting about that conversation, she also made a recommendation for Justice Kagan, who is a liberal. So Justice Coney Barrett is considered, or I should say nominee, she's not a justice yet, but she is a known conservative, and so the fact that somebody came in and recommended somebody for their jurist abilities, regardless of their political affiliations, says a lot about that recommendation.
That's refreshing to hear. I wish we just didn't even have political parties, except for the actual day we vote, then get rid of them.
Right, exactly. So it was nice to know. I felt a little bit more comfortable listening to that kind of an opinion, that you knew that this person also makes recommendations. Right. She bases it solely on their abilities to serve as a judicial or as a judge on the United States Supreme Court.
That's excellent.
Yes. So I guess another question people may have is, how does a case get to the Supreme Court?
I just want to give you about 60, 70 seconds, man. I don't want to rush you, but I know you want to make this point.
Yeah. So the rule of 4 is the most popular way, where a matter usually comes up on appeal on a petition for writ of certiorari from a lower court. And so if 4 of the justices think that the case is of great public importance, they will go ahead and issue the writ, which is the order for the lower court to send up the record, and then they will...
You said 4 justices required.
Yes. Yes. Now, in order to have an opinion, that's not to be confused with, it's a 5-4, it's a majority ruling. But in order to just have the case heard...
Oh, I see.
So there's a little bit of a difference there. So, yeah, very, very interesting. I thought this topic was obviously of great importance.
I wish we had more time, because I'm starting to realize what I don't know. I thought I knew And then Millie comes in and I realize, boy, I don't know anything about this topic. So we're going to bring her back and have her do a little more on this stuff. Great show today, Millie. Thanks so much for coming in. What's the best way to get in touch with Millie if folks out there want to get in touch with you?
833 Ask Millie or 727-376-9100. And thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, and she always does such a great job. Get in touch with Millie if you have any legal issues you want to discuss. Thanks so much for tuning into the Consumer Quarterback Show. I want to thank Brandon for letting me sit in his chair. I want to give him pass the healing vibe out to him and tell everybody, hey, check us out online, consumerqb.com.
You've been listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Whether it's real estate, consumer, or financial advice, let Brandon call your next play. Contact Brandon Rhymes at 813-670-7372. That's 813-670-7372. Online at consumerqb.com. And join us next time for The Consumer Quarterback Show.